daughter of Rasulullah, and hopefully this last week for us was a great source of barakah to be able to participate in Fatimiyya. And to the second Fatimiyya, we will inshallah continue to remember the daughter of Rasulullah, Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen, the best of all ladies, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajma'in. We're talking about Islamic ethics and saying that one of the sciences that we can learn more about ourselves and the weaknesses that we have, the vices that we have, and the positive attributes that we have, and how to enhance them is al-akhlaq, is Islamic ethics. We said that before we talk about this topic, we need to talk about three things. One is that man has free will, and until you really accept this, Islamic ethics does not make any sense. Because if you do not think that you have an opportunity and you have the capability to change yourself and to make yourself better, then there's no point of reading the Islamic ethical books. So the first notion that we emphasize is that man is free. Man can change themselves and has the capability to do so. The second is that man has a final goal, and that he has not been created without any purpose, and that his final goal is his completion, and completion is closeness to God. This is man's goal. To be close to God in the world. A person can be close to God. A person can be close to God in the hereafter. But is everyone going to have the same closeness and proximity? No. There's going to be different stations of faith, different stations of taqarrub and closeness to God. And in throughout our lives also there are stages that we have, we're closer to God, we're farther away from God. Or even throughout the day. But obviously the best time to approach God, how's it the tradition mentions, is salat, is prayer. As-salat mi'rajul mu'min. Salat causes us this ascension where we meet Allah. Sometimes you look at the narrations and you see that this great tool that we have to get close to God, that many of us are forsaking this tool. 5 times a day it's wajib on us to pray. But unfortunately, I'm talking about myself, many of us do not have presence of the heart when we're praying. We're thinking about other things. If you really think about it, you're standing in front of God Almighty and praying and worshiping. I'm talking to myself, then why am I somewhere else? Why is my mind somewhere else? When you look at some of the traditions, it says that sometimes half, sometimes a third, a fourth, a fraction of our prayer is ascended. And the others are left. The other part of prayer is left. Which part do you think is ascended? The narration says that part which I have hudurul qalb, that I have presence of the heart. That goes up, but the rest stays. So therefore you see that our imams, the 12 successors of the Prophet and his successors, they prayed with such intensity that Imam Sadiq or some of the imams are mentioned that they passed out in prayer. They passed out because they were mentioning, for example, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. They're saying only, I want help from you. We only worship you. We only seek help from you. And he asked them when he woke up, what happened that you passed out? And he answered that I heard the response from the qa'il of this إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Who's the qa'il? Who is the one that said this? This is from the Quran, Allah. So I heard the response from Allah. Meaning that from salat also, it can hear you present and say things to God, and you hear things from God. It's a conversation. It's not a chore that you have to do all the time, and that's, obviously it's wajib, but you should look at it as an opportunity that God wants me to speak to him. And there's many other people in this world that want to talk to him, but they do not know how. And this is the best way to speak to him. So ethics, the second principle, is that we have a goal. And our goal is to reach God. And the third principle in ethics that we have to learn before we can really, enhance ourselves, is that our actions are effective in reaching our goals. And our goal, which is at-taqarrub, our actions build this. Our actions cause this. It's not just granted that someone is just close to God unless they deserved it. That we get this taqarrub to, ourselves to God. And that the more you try, the more that, you sacrifice from your time, from your money, from your whatever resources you have, the more you will see a result. It's not, rocket science. The more you seek for God, the more he will be available for you. When you look at Imam Hadi alayhi salam and you see the tradition from Imam Hadi alayhi salam, the 10th Imam, you see that he says, خَيْرٌ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ فَاعِلُ, that a person can become so great in ethical behavior that better than goodness itself. We always think that goodness is the best thing. But better than goodness is the person that does good. Is goodness better or the person that does good? Imam Hadi says the person that does good is better than that goodness. وَأَجْمَلُ مِنَ الْجَمِيلِ قَائِلُ, and better, more beautiful than that, that beauty itself is the one that says the beauty. وَأَرْجَحَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ حَامِلُ, and then if you take knowledge itself and you put it and equate it with that person that is knowledgeable, which one is better, knowledge itself or the knowledgeable one? The Imam says the knowledgeable one. So this shows you that the source of ethical behavior is what is, and the possessor of ethical behavior has the highest of stations, has the highest of worths. That person that really is capable of making themselves a better person. That is, one of the highest things and the, most blessed things in this world. Let's recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, a question that comes to our mind is that maybe you've always heard in society that it's good. Nobody says it's bad to be, you should be an unethical person. Everyone says you should be ethical, right? Nobody says, let's be unethical. Usually, unless they're, criminals or something like that in an organized, crime or something, they say, let's be bad. But in general, people say, let's be good, right? Now, the question is, do you need religion to become a good person? Do you need to have deen, religion, in order to be ethical? Or no, humans can just be ethical by themselves. And I want to be honest. You see, for example, ethical, virtues like honesty, like justice, and like generosity, like bravery. All these things I will enhance myself. I don't need religion. I don't need deen to tell me how to behave. Can this really work or not? Important question. And what is the role of faith and iman in ethical enhancement and development? Do I need to be religious? And what advantage do those that are religious have over those that don't have religion, but yet they want to say and they claim they're ethical? The first thing that I would like to talk a bit about is the role. We're talking about the role of faith and religion in ethics. Let's recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. محمد وعجل فرجه. So the first thing is this. Ethical behavior changes by time. And what seems as being ethical one time can, for example, change and not be ethical anymore. For example, the way that people dress, modesty, and what is perceived to be modest changes over time. And you've seen maybe in 50 years in the United States, you've seen this change. Modesty, which is an ethical trait, but how can I exactly be modest? What is modest dress? Will change and shift. Will become, for example, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, or if you look at some of even in Europe, you'll see that the way that sisters today or tonight are covering themselves, that many in Europe were actually wearing the same dress. The same dress that is criticized sometimes with those that are against Islam or against, for example, they make up things. Say this is against the freedom of women. See that actually this is how the ladies in religion used to dress. This is how they used to dress in churches. This is actually in some areas how they used to dress in the streets. So what happens if you change? You don't have religion and you just allow ethics to be dictated by society. Because today, hijab is not valued and that modesty is not valued in the West how it used to be, for example, that covering used to be 100, 200 years ago. So the point is that there will be no reference point. Because as society degrades in ethical behavior, also what they view as good and bad will also change. And we've seen this clearly. Now today, for example, there's no problem whatsoever, for example, and I don't want, because I'm on the member, to give specific examples, but swimwear, for example, to wear that or have their daughters wear that or have, there's no problem whatsoever. That's what you do when you go swimming. But when these first came out, they would have to pay people to wear it, to advertise it, because nobody wanted to wear it. It was so indecent. So if you do not have religion being as a reference point, telling us this is ethical behavior, this is not ethical behavior, or telling us the instance of it, then you're always susceptible to degradation of ethical behavior. And you don't even realize it. And things become very normal for societies that if they came from 200 years ago and they're resurrected and they came and lived with us, they say, you're crazy. You guys are crazy now, but now it's so normal. Look at the tradition from the Prophet. That the Prophet talks about this, and this is one of the needs of religion. That religion has to be there to set the standard, to be a point of reference. The Prophet is asked here, عن مسعد ابن صدقة عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام قال الكافي قال النبي كيف بكم إذا فسدت نساؤكم وفسق شبابكم ولم تأمروا بالمعروف ولا تنهوا عن المنكر. How would it be if your women became corrupt and your youth became indecent? They're also in fisq and corruption. And you did not command the good and you did not prohibit the evil. How would you be at that time? قِيلَ لَهُ وَيَكُونُ ذَلِكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Is that even possible? That women become corrupt, young people are indecent, and we do not do anything about it. We do not command the good. We do not, forbid the evil. Is that even possible? And then the tradition continues. فَقَالَ النَّعَمْ وَالشَّرُّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ كَيْفَ بِكُمْ. I'll give you, yes, it will happen. How would you be إِذَا أَمَرْتُمْ بِالْمُنْكَرِ? How would you be if you commanded towards the evil? It's opposite. Now you're commanding towards the evil. وَنَحَيْتُمْ عَلَى الْمَعْرُوفِ. And you actually prohibit the good, which is happening. The instance of it is today. They're commanding something, they're wanting something which is haram. They're commanding it and putting it in the young student's brain. This is completely haram. And they're commanding it and commanding and commanding it. And then that normal life, that ma'ruf life, that good life, wholesome life, they're prohibiting it. Say, that is haram, that is bad. Don't do that. Do this instead. It makes no sense whatsoever. فَقِيلَ لَهُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَيَكُونُ ذَلِكَ. Really, Rasulullah, can it become like that? That people will command the evil and they'll prohibit the good? And we see this over and over, especially more in this time, day in society. قَالَ نَعَمْ شَرٌّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. It would be even worse than this. كيف بكم إذا رأيتم المعروف منكرا والمنكر معروف. How would you be if, this is the example that I wanted to share tonight, is if you saw good and munkar being evil and evil becoming good, how would you be then? So this is from the last, is that actually something that truly deen, religion says is good. But now people see it as evil and bad. And something that is completely evil, haram, completely haram, has always been haram for thousands of years. And now it's becoming good. MashaAllah, barakallah, everyone is now doing this action. So how does it switch? How does evil become good and good become evil? When you try to have ethical behavior without religion. Because religion will say this relationship is haram. The only relationship that is allowed is between husband and wife, for example, and through marriage. That is allowed. Everything else is not allowed. But if you do not have religion saying this and dictating, what kind of relationships we can have, then man will come and think and think and think and think and think and make up their own rules. And say, now these rules, and they'll share their opinions, and now because it becomes the popular opinion, it changes so fast. Now everyone's saying, no, that's good. MashaAllah, that's very good. Say, wait a minute, this is sin, big sin. This is corruption. So therefore we see that when you look at details and how to live and what is ethical behavior, we have to have religion. So the first thing is, it is impossible to have ethical behavior without having a point of reference. Because mankind will slide down and become immoral, shameless. And they'll get so used to this shamelessness that they'll think it's okay. That's how haya means. When haya, modesty, goes, then that person thinks, oh, that's normal, that's customary. You see, for example, even issues with dating. And the dating becomes something so normal in society that when immigrant parents come here and they say that, look, Islam, Quran says, for example, you cannot date, boys and girls cannot date, cannot have such a relationship. Then there'll be in society so much say, you know what, is it okay if for example, kids date each other? Is it okay? This is normal now. Is it okay if they do this? No, they said, what, for marriage, for example? No. Just a date. Because it seems normal, everyone's doing it. And if you're in, for example, high school and you do not go to the prom, you're a weirdo, for example. What's wrong with you? Right? So this is all things that we're very cautious of as Muslims, is that you always have to keep the point of reference being the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. And that's why we understand that if your faith is based off the Quran and Sunnah, that mountains will move before your faith is moved. The second issue that is a big difference when you want to study ethics, and I really believe that you brothers and sisters have this advantage in that we are not taking advantage of this. Because you have deen. And you want to become a better person, ethical person by religion, because of God. And if you don't have it, then you won't have that advantage. The second thing is, what is the guarantee of ethical behavior? How would I have a guarantee? Why should I be ethical? Maybe one day I don't have religion. One day I don't want to be ethical. One day I wake up, I want to be a jerk. For example, okay, let me have a break. Everyone has vacation. One day, let me be a jerk. It's okay, right? Or, for example, one day I want to do whatever I will, or I'm on vacation. One day. It's like a diet, and they say, the doctors will tell you, they'll have this strict diet, but you can have time off. You can, for example, one day, choose one day, and you can eat whatever you want in the month. For example, one day or something. So one day I want to leave all the ethics behind. I'm ethical the majority of the time, but one day I want to do whatever I want. Or, for example, it's a wedding. And religion tells me, for example, you should not mix this wedding, for example, if they're going to be dancing and, there's not going to be observing a muhtasham and a very, you could say, reserved party between, brothers and sisters. It's not very reserved. Religion says, do not have such a gathering. It says, one night, it's my wedding night. Right? If for ethics, the only motivation, there's no guarantee, it's not religion, just being ethical, then, it's their wedding night, you become a little bit more flexible, right? Would you agree with me? You can become more flexible. You can allow, one night, for example, or one day, an exception. So religion and the belief in God guarantees ethical behavior because there is no vacation from Islam. There's a sheikh, our teacher told us, he went to and asked him a question, and he says, Sheikh, what is the answer to this? He said, excuse me, I'm on vacation. I cannot answer your question. I'm on vacation right now. I'm not a sheikh right now anymore. I'm on vacation. So we don't have vacation. Unfortunately, the sheikhs don't have vacation in reality because we have responsibility towards God. We have to answer their questions, for example. Or there's no exception in, any one night or one day. We always have to have taqwa. So belief in God has, causes this ethical behavior. So the third is incentive. If we don't have religious behavior, then we understand that there is no incentive for me to become ethical. When we look at a religious person that wants to reach the highest levels of akhlaq, the highest levels of capability that he can, he is doing this in order to refine his nafs, in order to get close to God. And this for him is the highest amount of encouragement because he is enjoying a proximity towards Allah by becoming ethics. And the farthest from you, the most separate from you, are those that, for example, have bad akhlaq from God. So that religious person is not just going to become good just to be good. He's going to become good because he has a plan, because he wants to reach God, because it's a complete joy and bliss to reach God, to get completion towards God. The fourth thing that I'd like to mention, and we'll wrap it up tonight, is that we have social obligations. If a religious person approaches ethics, he is responsible towards society. Not only is a religious person in Islam responsible for themselves, but also they're responsible for society. That means if society does something that is wrong, a religious person says, I have to do this because I can be punished. God can punish me because I have remained silent, because I have not helped out. When you look at the story, for example, of the she-camel of Saleh, when they asked the people of Thamud, were asked by Prophet Saleh to bring a she-camel forth, and he brought a she-camel out of the mountain, and Quran mentions that they disbelieved, even though this was a miracle. They came and killed, it says the aqaruha, they slaughtered the she-camel. But in reality, there was only one person that did this slaughtering. The rest were quiet, were silent. The rest allowed this to happen. And then Allah punishes everyone. And today you'd say, wait a minute, that's collective punishment. That's wrong. You're not allowed. Collective punishment is a war crime. Collective punishment is a war crime. But in the world of religion, it goes back to your intentions. Were you as a Muslim not responsible that they would not kill the she-camel? Would you not have the capability to stop them and command the good, to enjoin the good and forbid the evil? Religion makes us responsible for one another. But an ethical person can say, look, I'm not going to do that. That's their own life. That's their own religion. You have your own way. I have my own way. That's fine. You can practice however you want. You want to kill the she-camel, go kill it. I'm going to go and do my own salat, for example. I'm going to go and do my own ethical behavior. So religion makes us, in a way, responsible from the instructions, especially Islam, responsible for one another. Let's recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajin faraja. Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, when she is visited by the ladies of Ansar and the Muhajirin, and she is injured from the attack on her house, which according to Shia and Sunni, this attack did happen. She shows us that this fourth point, that we are responsible for the truth, that everyone has to fight for the truth and everyone is responsible for the ethical behavior of others. So much so that when they come to her, it says, لما مرضت فاطمة المرضة التي توفيت فيها اجتمع إليها النساء المهاجرين والأنصار يعدنها فقلنا لها كيف أصبحت من علتك يا بنت رسول الله. They came to visit her, and if she was not a religious person, she could have answered and not cared about what would happen in the way the people chose to choose Imam Ali or to choose the first Khalifa. She could not care. Say, let them do whatever they like. Let them do. I'm going to have Imam Ali. They can do whatever they want. I'm going to be an ethical person by myself. But religion tells us and trains us that you are responsible for one another. So she becomes so upset at the men and says, أَسْبَحْتَ وَاللَّهِ عَائِفَةً لِلدُّنْيَا كُنَّا قَالِيَةً لِرِجَالِ كُنَّا. By Allah, I have woken up that I have been resenting your world and detesting your men. Why is she so upset with the men of Medina? Why is she so upset, do you think, with the men of Medina? Because she gave the speech of Fadak in front of them, one of the best speeches ever. And nobody stood up to help her. Nobody stood up. Even her uncle. She did not want her uncle to be in her funeral. I have cast them away after testing them and hated them after examining them. So she is upset because a truly religious, ethical person cares about society, cares about their growth, their well-being. Thus, away with the men of playing after seriousness, striking the soft rock, slackening the spears, the foolishness of judgments, and deviation of fancies. And she mentions the verse of Quran, وَلَبِئْسَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لَهُمْ أَنفُسُهُمْ أَنْ سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَفِي الْعَذَابِ هُمْ خَالِدُونَ. Certainly evil is that which their souls have sent before from them, that Allah became displeased with them, and in chastisement shall they abide. So you see that the way she says, I have tested the men, the way that she sees her society, that the injustice that they're committing to Ali ibn Abi Talib, the injustice that they're committing to her, she's not going to be indifferent about it. She's not going to allow people to stray away from the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. She's going to become a martyr and shahida for Imam Ali, so that this wilayat, this important religious belief that will bring completion of faith, will be preserved for generations to come. And the fact that you today are here, and that you follow Sayyidah Fatima, and you follow the directions that she had, and she made it so clear which path she took, that she made in herself a shaheed. She came to Imam Ali alayhi salam and to the house of Imam Ali, and she saw that the only way was when they came in front of, we can dim the lights, she came in front of the door when they came to set it on fire. Again, in Shia and Sunni sources, in strong sources, for example, Biladhuri and Ansab al-Ashraf, they come to set fire to the house. And she asked this question, are you coming to set my house, this door on fire? And he answers, yes, yes. We can dim the lights, we get into the Rawza and the Musibat of Sayyidatun Nisa, inshallah. So she fought for ethical behavior. She fought for what was, real. And we see in the tradition mentioned, وَرُوِيَ أَنَّهَا مَا زَالَتْ بَعْدَ أَبِيهَا وَرُوِيَ أَنَّهَا مَا زَالَتْ بَعْدَ أَبِيهَا. So she became a barrier between the people and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And she saw that the only way, Allama Amini was asked, why did Fatima Zahra come towards the door when Ali alayhi salam was there? Now, usually a man would not allow his wife, for example, to confront a group of people that were threatening that house. And Allama Amini beautifully answered and said that possibly she came to answer the door so that they could have haya, that they could have shame, that it is Rasulullah's daughter, and they come to her house, and the position that she has, that whenever she would come to the majlis of the Prophet would stand for her, would give his own place for her, would kiss her, would respect her, that they would come to her. The angels, we have hadith, the angels would come and give condolences for Lady Zahra for the passing away of Rasulullah. That maybe they would have haya and shame that now Bint Rasulullah, the same messenger that he guided you for 23 years, that maybe you would have some shame, and that when she comes to the door that you would not come after Ali ibn Abi Talib. But they did not have shame when they attacked her house. After this injury, Sayyidah Fatima has a home called Baytul Ahzan, the house of sorrows, because she was crying day and night, but not for herself, not for her injuries. She was crying for Faqdun Nabi and Dhulmul Wasi. She was crying for the separation of the Prophet. She was crying for the oppression of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and that towards the end of her life, روِيَ أَنَّهَا مَا زَالَتْ بَعْدَ أَبِيهَا مُعَسَّبَةَ الرَّأْسِ, that her head was covered from the injuries. A handkerchief was tied upon your mother's head. Don't think only those that are Sayyid can say Sayyidah Fatima is our mother. The ziyarat says, Assalamu alayki ya al-mu'mineen. She is the mother of the believers. She is your mother. Your mother had a handkerchief tied on her head. Nahilat al-jism munhaddat al-rukn. That her holy body was becoming less and less, it was becoming more and more weak, that she was in a way that she could not stand up straight anymore. وَبَاكِيَةَ الْعَيْنِ. The tradition has that she was, for example, her eyes were constantly crying. مُحْتَرَقَةَ الْقَلْبِ. That her heart was on fire. And at the last time, imagine, this is Bint Rasulullah, an 18-year-old lady, should not be passing out, waking up, passing out, waking up. وَيُخْشَى عَلَيْهَا سَاعَ بَعْدَ سَاعَ. 1 hour she would faint and pass out. 1 hour she was okay. And this is what they did to Sayyidah to Fatima. This is the way she stood for ethical justice. This is the way that she stood for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Ya Allah, we ask, inshallah, that we become the followers, inshallah, true followers of Sayyidah Fatima, inshallah. May we become of the Fatimiyun. Inshallah, may our actions and our beliefs equate each other, inshallah. May all those that have passed away, Allah have rahmah and mercy upon them. All those that are sick, give them shafa. And inshallah, expedite the return of the Imam of the age with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajr.